comparing China and the United States, these are two completely different countries, very different culture, and great momentum for their economic development, but they are really marching in different ways. Therefore, I don't normally compare China with the United States. Each one has its own destiny. Each one needs to do its own homework. And then China versus the United States, we need to pick and choose the right roadmap for China versus for the United States. For China and the United States, we are not only separated by the Pacific Ocean, we are on different sides of the Pacific Ocean. In many other important ways, both China and the United States are important global powers. China and the United States have reaches out to every shore in the world, not only economically speaking, by trading, by many other things. Therefore, both China and the United States are global powers in a sense. Therefore, the Pacific Ocean, of course, is big enough to accommodate both China and the United States, correctly pointed out, as President Xi Jinping said several years ago. But now, I think we need to look at the world as it is, the world as one global village. We can be accommodated in this global village together, and China's success does not need to take place at the expense of the United States, and the U.S. success and continued success does not need to take place at the expense of China's interest. And these two countries, different as they are, should view their differences as strengths rather than as irreconcilable differences which will tear them apart. I think both China and the United States are truly pushing forward to the forefront of technological breakthroughs. In China, we are very vibrant because one generation after another, we are always dedicated to technological innovation. We want to push to the forefront of breakthroughs. In that sense, I think China and the United States are very similar because we are not complacent. We want to do the innovation as much as we can. We want to explore the space, for example. We want to go to the depth of human knowledge. We want to do all kinds of pioneering, innovative things. In that sense, I think China and the United States are shoulder to shoulder in working very hard. However, whatever we do, innovation, creativity, for example, need to serve a constructive purpose. We cannot use that for pure geopolitics, for another version of the Cold War, for example, and especially in terms of AI. Eventually, China and the United States need to get along and need to cooperate because AI, if left unattended or unregulated, may eventually be the biggest menace to the survival of Homo sapiens. They may eventually subjugate mankind as a second-class citizen. If you listen to Elon Musk, he said that human beings, being carbon-based, may eventually give up to the AI or robots, which are machine-based, which are silicon-based. Right now, I think quite a few countries are pushing forward in the development of AI. I would say there are two leading countries in this endeavor, China and the United States. In China, the government encourages innovation. Entrepreneurs come up with new applications, for example, and the consumers are waking up. They want to have better services, more efficient, more speedy solutions, for example. And I think this kind of dynamics between China and the United States pushing forward the horizon in technological innovation is the excitement of our time. And I hope this innovation, this creativity, breakthroughs will for peaceful purposes rather than for geopolitical purposes. We know there is a very distinguished professor at Harvard who wrote a book called Destined for War, based on his theory of Thucydides trap. I felt uncomfortable when I saw the book review several years ago about this book, and I read that book. And I think if anyone tries to apply this destined for war scenario to China and the United States, I think it's not only wrong, it's not academic, it's not accurate, it's actually is a fallacy now. Why? Let me tell you. I think the professor is distinguished, is well known, very authoritative, highly respected, that's for sure. However, he analyzed dozens of cases of war and came up with his own theory. And he asked the question that, as far as China and the United States are concerned, whether these two countries are destined for war, as in the cases of war that he and his team analyzed over the centuries. Now, he forgot one thing. He analyzed all the cases of war, which are all conventional wars. And if anyone wanted to apply the conclusion you derive from analyzing conventional wars to China and the United States, which are not only two conventional powers, but two of the most important nuclear powers in the world, there must be something wrong in terms of the methodology, in terms of how you try to apply the conclusions analyzing conventional war to nuclear powers. Therefore, I think I now tell everyone in the world that the Thucydides trap and the destined for war scenario applied to China and the United States is not true. My point is very simple. Between China and the United States, war is not and should not be an option. Because if anyone believes that through war, either China or the United States will come out as a successor prevailing over the other side, almost with no consequences for itself, it's not going to happen. Because these two countries are fully armed to the teeth in conventional weapons as well as nuclear weapons. And any war between them will soon escalate out of control from conventional war into nuclear war. Eventually, it will be Armageddon. It will be a great disaster for both China and the United States, as well as for mankind as a whole. Therefore, war should not be promoted as an instrument of policy between China and the United States. I come up with my own theory. It's called inevitability of peace. Peace between China and the United States is inevitable. Why? Because neither China nor the United States should ever think about using war as a means to achieve their own goals, because war is not possible between China and the United States, because the consequence of war between China and the United States will be the destruction of the world. Deng Xiaoping was the greatest man I've ever met in my life, because my experiences of working for more than 20 meetings that Deng Xiaoping had with visiting dignitaries is very firm and very clear. First of all, he always looked at the problems as they are, and he would always be able to come up with a solution. He was never daunted by the problems themselves. Problems, challenges are inborn in everything we do in life. And for Deng Xiaoping, it's the same thing. The key is not to have problems. The key is to come up with a solution to the problems. Number two is that he's a man of great courage, great wisdom, great vision, and sometimes great audacity. He comes up with more wisdom, more analysis, and greater penetration of his view into any problem. He could see possibility out of impossibility. He would be able to come up with a compromise when everything would fail. And that's how he was the great leader. In my word, Deng Xiaoping was the prophet for the Chinese nation, because back in 1978, China was really locked up in a big ideological, political box. We were talking about everything socialist must be better than everything capitalist. We, at that time, said we would rather have socialist wheat than capitalist grass. China was splitting the hair in this huge ideological box. But Deng Xiaoping came out of that. He went to the top of the mountain and he pointed out a direction, said, that's the direction to go. Many people in China probably did not believe him because we tried again and again and again, and eventually failures, disasters came across to us. In a sense, Deng Xiaoping became a prophet. He saw the right direction for the whole nation. He pointed out a way for China to develop. He extricated China from a political box where we were splitting hair. Eventually, Deng Xiaoping's great contribution, not only to China, but to mankind as a whole, was that we want to have socialism with Chinese characteristics. That means socialism is a worthy political goal, of course, but eventually you need to come up with your own Chinese characteristics. In a sense, the United States is pursuing capitalism. No one wants them to give up capitalism, but they need to come up with capitalism with American characteristics too. If China follows socialism with Chinese characteristics and the Americans continue to follow capitalism with American characteristics, we will find more and more in common. Eventually, what matters the most is economic development, is whether you can do your best to improve the living standards of the people. Now we call it socialism with Chinese characteristics in the new era. So this is the historical stage we are moving in. And I think we need to continue to overcome all the challenges, all the adversities, for example, and continue to march forward to greater peace, greater development.